Well, if you want to talk about impactful days for Kansas football that don't involve a head coach, I think Friday is going to be one of them. We got a jam-packed little short episode here to talk about everything going on with Kansas football. If you missed it on Friday afternoon, Pete Thamel reported that Jeff Grimes is the target of the Wisconsin offensive coordinator search. Look, these things are very carefully worded, and target is a specific word I think that is used when things are going a certain way, and it's just not official yet. And I expect that to be official sometime probably this weekend, that Jeff Grimes will become the new offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. And then, of course, the big news coming, almost 2 hours after that, is that Jalon Daniels will be back at Kansas for the 2025 season, his senior year. He will be back at KU. It's another one of those situations where you see a very carefully worded tweet from Pete Thamel saying that Daniels has basically renegotiated a deal with KU to stay. And that's where we're at in the world of college athletics. It's going to take some time to get used to some wording like that, but that's exactly what has transpired. Daniels will be back at Kansas for the 2025 season. And look, there's a lot to unpack with all of the news going on today, but first and foremost, you got to talk about the impact of Jalon Daniels returning for KU. And I think it starts with the portal. And you've already seen some outgoing movement for KU. Some like Sevion Morrison entering the portal on the offensive side of the ball. We'll not focus on the defensive side of the ball. We'll save that for a full podcast on Sunday to talk about. But if you look at the offensive side of the ball for KU, right, Sevion Morrison goes into the portal, a running back for KU. You know, KU's recruited LaShawn Williams from Iowa. I expect KU will continue to recruit running backs, but now what you can do if you're KU and you're Jonathan Wallace, the running backs coach, if you're Terrence Samuel, the wide receivers coach, anybody that's involved with recruiting the transfer portal for KU, you can go and tap the sign that Jalon Daniels will be your quarterback if you come to the University of Kansas. And that's a huge selling point because there is proven production with Jalon Daniels. Regardless of what you think about how this season went, the numbers, you can look back at this year and yeah, the passing efficiency isn't great. The touchdown to interception ratio isn't great, but you can look at certain parts throughout the season and see the talent that Jalon has, right? And for the coaches to be able to go as they recruit to build out this roster, that is going to look a lot different next year. It's going to have so many new faces. They can say, this is the guy that's going to be under center or in the shotgun, uh, taking the snaps, throwing you the ball, handing you the ball, or the guy you're going to protect, because that's a crucial part for KU now, is trying to build out this team to where it can be competitive. And I think there are a few ways that this can go, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot over the offseason. You've seen teams have trajectories like Kansas. I know I've talked about this before with Iowa State, where the 2020 season for Iowa State made the Big 12 title game. The next season, disappointing. After that season, there was a lot of roster turnover. A lot of guys transferred. A lot of guys graduated. And they kind of paid their dues for 2 years, really struggled. And now this year they're having success. And I think for KU, what the goal is going to be is that to not have such a low where by having Jalon return, you can go out and recruit a certain level of portal talent that then can put you in a position where maybe it's not a 4-8 season, but where you can compete at a higher level and get back to a bowl game and compete at the sharper end of the conference. And so for KU, personnel wise, this is going to give them a huge boost on the recruiting trail. And you got to keep in mind too, the portal's not even open. We're sitting here on Friday night and it doesn't open until Monday morning. And so there are a lot more names that are going to go in the portal. There are a lot more players on the outside that are going to go in and KU's going to get involved with. And again, be able to say Jalon Daniels is your quarterback. And so you look at the needs KU is going to have. Offensive line is going to be one, tight end, wide receiver, running back. Like, it's everywhere. That's what happens when you lose 30 seniors and you already have some players transferring out, right? KU's got a lot of scholarship spots available, and they're going to need to fill them. And so this is a great start for KU to get that ball rolling in a positive direction. Because look, on the other hand, if Jalon had decided to look elsewhere, go to a different school, all of a sudden it's a decision. Hey, if you're KU, are you going to go recruit a transfer portal quarterback? Are you going to go and run with a redshirt freshman or a redshirt sophomore quarterback? Those are tough spots to be in. And so this is the most advantageous position for Kansas to be in, just given the current situation. And so if you look at Jalon's year this year, I think it's pretty clear what happened, right? It's someone that spent last year injured and really had to take a very deliberate approach to getting back to full health. Because you got to look back and say, this is the first time Jalon Daniels has played 12 football games in a season, right? That's a pretty big deal. And yes, it did not go to plan earlier in the year. And I've pulled up the numbers here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. The touchdown interception ratio early in the year, it's bad, right? You're talking 3 to 6, a 1 to 2 touchdown interception ratio. That's not good. And a part of that stems from Jalon Daniels not doing a lot in spring practice, right? He did not do a lot of 11 on 11 work in spring ball. And then you look at during training camp, KU had injuries at wide receiver. Lawrence Arnold was banged up at the start of camp. I think Quentin Skinner had some time where he missed. So all of a sudden, you're talking about a quarterback wide receiver connection where they haven't thrown and caught since September of 2023 on a consistent basis. And that's a lot of time. And I think you saw that earlier in the year. And the crucial part of the season where I think you can see that Jalon Daniels that you saw in 2022 and a little bit in 2023 was still there is that kind of stretch between Arizona State and Colorado where, Jalon completed about 61% of his passes. Again, not earth-shattering efficiency, but for 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions with about 9 yards per attempt. Those are great numbers. That's what you want from the quarterback position. And that showed that Jalon Daniels is still there. And I think a reason why the efficiency dropped, and this is something that I've talked a little bit about on our premium message board, is the fact that this is the 2024 passing chart for Jalon Daniels. Look at the 20-plus yards down the field. Look at those throws. Look at the high number, 20 throws to 20 yards down the field to the right. Big picture here, you're talking, 70 plus throws over the course of the season. When Jalon threw 300 passes on the year, you're talking 70 of those throws were 20 plus yards down the field. And here's the 2022 season when it's a very different type of passing chart for KU where, in this one, it's 38 passes, 20 plus yards down the field. And yes, Jalon missed a couple games, right? But still, you can see the difference in the passing chart with Jeff Grimes as the offensive coordinator versus Andy Kotelnicki as the offensive coordinator. And the middle of the field, I think, for me, is one of the biggest things that stands out, right? You can see in 2022 how much KU is targeting the middle of the field. Very efficient throws, right? If you're throwing outside the numbers, that's a longer distance the ball has to travel, longer time for cornerbacks to be able to make breaks on the ball and things like that. Well, then you look at this year, and there's so much that's outside the numbers, right? It's very inefficient targeting throws. And so I think that's some things that go into contributing to Jalon having a little bit of a down year in terms of the efficiency. And look, he was not sharp to start the season. We talked about that in the post-game videos, right? You saw it. I saw it. He was missing throws. He wasn't sharp. But still, you can pull this big picture together and see just how things can unfold like that. So for KU looking ahead now, it's all about nailing the offensive coordinator hire. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Excuse me. We've already posted on the premium message board what I'm hearing on it, candidates to watch, how I think this is going to play out timing-wise. But nailing this offensive coordinator hire is really important for KU because you're looking at a situation where you go from Andy Kotelnicki to Jeff Grimes, and Jeff Grimes, you're really trying to run the Kansas offense. You look at what the offense looked like, I think, early in the season when Jeff Grimes was trying to do some of his stuff versus a little later in the season when it's different and it's a little bit more of what I think we've seen from KU in the past. And it's important that KU gets this hire right because this is going to be a season where you've got Jalon in his last year, but also you're starting to build towards the future now because you've got a guy, that's developing in Isaiah Marshall. You got another guy in David McComb who's going to enroll early. He'll be on campus in January. You've got Cole Ballard on the roster as well. Like you've got young quarterbacks that need time to develop, and you need the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach to be on the same page and be able to build an offense that not only is going to make Jalon Daniels the best he can be, not only put the skill position players in the best position they can be, but one that is going to be successful for the long term of Kansas football. Because in the big picture of things, you don't want to go and hire a new offensive coordinator every offseason or every two off seasons. You'd like to be able to get into a position where, maybe you're got your offense coordinator for 5 years, right? That's an important spot. So this hire is really critical for KU, and I think it's really critical that they get this done fast. The portal opens Monday, right? Flood of players going in Monday. You like to be able to tap the sign that Jalon Daniels is the quarterback. You like to be able to tap the sign that you know who your offensive coordinator is going to be, and who, depending on who it is, how the position coach thing works out. So, look, this is a really important day for Kansas, and it's one that I think puts the program in a much more advantageous position compared to if Jalon Daniels had left and if Jeff Grimes had stuck around as the offensive coordinator. That's just my opinion. And I think you look ahead now to this year, you've got a new stadium opening up, and you've got a face of your program in Jalon Daniels, who's been around and has a chance now to go and build the legacy, right? He's already moving up the record books, but this now gives him the chance to, I think, write the quote unquote storybook ending. And maybe the ending that this senior class probably didn't think or didn't get that maybe they deserved. When you think about the 2020 and 2021 class and the way that those 30 plus seniors went out this year. Well, you got a guy in Jalon Daniels now that in a brand new stadium next year, or 2/3 new stadium, if you will, can go out and put together a season that I think can make a lot of people proud, considering the roster turnover that's happening. You're going to look at those returning production rankings, and Kansas will be at the bottom. Like, they will be out of whatever 130 something FBS teams. They'll be in the hundreds of that. And you've got a guy now that can lead you into this transitional phase of going from this senior class where it was players that you knew, right? And you saw them grow up in the Kansas program, right? You think about Bryce Cable starting undersized, guys like Caleb Taylor starting undersized, Devin Neal playing as a freshman, and you watch them grow. Well, now you're in a position where Jalon is the one kind of guy that's the carryover. And he will lead Kansas in as a transitional figure, not in terms of record, but in terms of just the roster and what it looks like into a new age. And so for KU, just a huge day overall, and something that you can't really understate the impact of it for the program and what it's going to mean in the big picture, in the short term and the long term. So those are just some of my thoughts. We'll be back with another full podcast, probably on either Sunday or Monday, breaking down kind of what this week was. If KU has an OC hire, we'll talk about the OC hire. We'll talk about the portal, everything going on, how things are going to be playing out over the next 2 months. Because look, it's going to be busy. It's going to be really busy. I've been joking on Twitter that every time I leave the house, it feels like news breaks. So I will not leave my house very much in the next 2 months, sadly. But it's going to be crazy. And so we'll keep you covered on VIP. Make sure you take advantage. We do have a 50% off sale right now. If you did miss out on that 75% off sale, we got a 50% off sale right now. You get it for less than $5 a month for the next year. Again, through portal season, through basketball portal season, through next football season, right? Great time to sign up. So make sure you take advantage of that. So thanks as always for watching. Make sure you're liking the videos, subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast platform of your choice, leave ratings, reviews. That stuff goes a long way. Thanks as always for listening and for checking out the page. We'll talk to you all again in a few days.